Hello everybody, and welcome back to Certified Collectibles. Today we're going to be taking a look at some rare and hard to find games for the Nintendo Entertainment System. All these games are in sealed quality, and they're all graded by Wata. Now all these titles are also the finest known or the highest grade. I think there's one exception in this group, but all the other titles are the finest known. Now, we did another video on rare and hard to find Nintendo games back in October. I think we published that October 29th. So if you like this video, definitely go back and check out that one. We do mention 5 other games in that particular video. So if you like this one, there's 5 more games highlighted in that video. We also mentioned in that video, and it's worth repeating now, that a lot of collectors or investors are chasing all these popular titles, all the titles that are getting all the buzz on social media and trade magazines and all the big auction results and the ones you see on the nightly news getting these humongous prices in auction. Don't just chase those popular titles. A lot of these games, especially the ones we're showing you today, are truly rare and really hard to find. Most of these, there's only been about 3 or 4 that have come into auction in the last 2 years, as opposed to Mario Brothers. There's hundreds of those, hundreds that have been sold just this year alone, hundreds last year. Final Fantasy, Legend of Zelda, all those games, there's hundreds of those graded in high grade, so they're out there. And once everybody gets all they want of those games, they're going to come after these rare games, but they're all going to be gone. Everybody's already going to have purchased them, hold them in their collections. You're never going to see them again. So definitely don't forget about these rare games. Just because they're not the super hot popular titles, don't mean they should be overlooked, and don't mean these aren't going to be the ones that everybody's chasing later on and the ones nobody can find. So we did pick out 5 games for today's video, and let's go ahead and get started. We're going to present these in the order of release, starting with 1988. Our first game today is Rolling Thunder. This is a Tengen release in 1988. This is a Wata certified 9.28++, part of the Indiana collection. This is a side-scrolling action game. You play Albatross. He's a member of the Rolling Thunder espionage group, and he's trying to save a female comrade that's being held by evil forces. So this is a traditional side-scrolling action game. This is part of the Indiana collection, like I mentioned. The Indiana collection, if you don't know, these games are going to be some of the finest known, the highest graded that ever come to market. The Indiana collection was a group of 2,000 games that were left over from this video rental store and game rental store in rural Indiana. When the store closed in 1998, all these games just sat in the storeroom in pristine condition. They were still in the original boxes. So these games are going to be some of the highest known, highest graded games that ever come to market. So definitely when you see the Indiana collection, this is also the first pedigree that Wata ever recognized. So whenever you see the Indiana collection, you might want to consider picking it up, even if you're not familiar with the title, because it's probably going to be the finest known game out there, the highest grade. So definitely focus on some of the Indiana collection games. Now this game, like I said, is a Tengen game from 1988. Tengen made a lot of unlicensed game for Nintendo. They didn't actually have any of the Nintendo seal of quality. They actually had their own Tengen seal of quality down here. And a lot of these unlicensed games, we mentioned this in the October video as well, a lot of the unlicensed games were not heavily distributed to local boutiques and small video stores and game stores. So if you lived in a smaller town or rural area, you probably didn't see some of the unlicensed games. Also, gamers did not buy a lot of the unlicensed games because, all the problems with the Atari unlicensed games from years before stuck in everybody's minds. They don't want a lot of these just garbage games to play, so they stuck with the Nintendo games. Because of that, the unlicensed games, very undersold back then, and they weren't heavily distributed back then. So the unlicensed games are definitely ones you want to focus on adding to your collection, and if you can find a high grade one, great, but like I said, there's not a lot of these out there on the market. Rolling Thunder. Game number 2 is another Tengen game from 1988. This is Alien Syndrome, part of the Indiana collection as well, a Wata certified 9.28+. Now this is a run and gun. You play a soldier that's trying to rescue comrades. You go through multiple levels and you try to save your comrades from another, evil forces. That seems to be the theme of a lot of these games. This is another unlicensed Tengen game. Like I said, this is a Wata 9.2, part of the Indiana collection. We just talked about that a moment ago. Indiana collections are going to be very high grade. You definitely want to try to snatch those when you see them on the market. There's not a lot of them left out there. A lot of them came to market back in 2019. But this game here, Alien Syndrome, if you could find it, it's a really cool game to add to your long-term investment portfolio. Alien Syndrome. Game number 3. Robo Warrior. Now this is the Jalico release in 1988. This is an actual Nintendo game, as you can see by the round Nintendo seal of quality. That means it is an early production run. This is an action puzzle game. You play a cyborg who's trying to, I think, defeat some evil leader of a evil empire. So it's going to be very similar to some of the gameplay from Bomberman. Zed, the cyborg that you control, drops bombs to clear passages through rock and stone and forest, and kill enemies and collect stuff along the way. Very similar to the Bomberman gameplay. So if you play Bomberman, this is going to be somewhat familiar. This game was not heavily sold back in the day. I think there's only been about 3 that have come to auction in the last 2 years. This one here, like I said, this is probably the exception. Out of all the games we have today, there was one exception. This is the 8.5. Wata 8.5 A+. This one here was the highest grade that we ever saw in the market, but there was a 9.4 that came to market, and I think it was an Indiana collection, but it might have been Carolina collection, but it wasn't on the Pedigree game. That was a 9.4A. That is the highest known copy. This is the second highest known copy, and there's only been one other one that has come to market. So this game, there's not a lot of them out there. A cool puzzle game. These were not heavily sold back in the day. People weren't really into the puzzlers as much as they were the platformers and the run and guns. So there's not a lot of these saved in people's collections. One you might want to consider if you see it on the market, snatch up for your personal collection. Game number 4. This is Legacy of the Wizard. This is a broader bun release in 1989, part of the Indiana collection as well. This is a 9.6 A+. Now, this is a fantasy-themed RPG with platforming elements. This was one of the earliest examples of an open-world, non-linear action RPG. So very important to the video game industry, to the video game world. One of the earliest RPGs with non-linear gameplay. So it had an open world, the best they can do for 1989. So it was very ahead of its time. Because of that, it did not sell tremendously well. There's only been 2 in auction in the last 2 years, as being one of them. This is the highest known grade. This is a 9.6 A+. This game follows along the story of a family. They're trying to kill or destroy a dragon that's trapped in some sort of magical painting in a labyrinth underground. It's a very fantastical game. Open world RPG, one of the first of its kind. Very important game. So if you actually see it on the market, this is important for the video game industry. For RPGs, it's one of the first ones. So it's one to consider if you actually see it laying around. If you see it coming to auction, pick this one up. This is an important one. And our last game for today's video. This is Dino Wars, a Bandai 1990 release, Wata 9.4A. Now this is a standard platformer. You play either Professor Proteus or Cybosaurus. This game was not well received when it was released. It's been panned over the years. It's just, the graphics aren't very good. The low quality graphics. There's a lot of bugs in this, and the gameplay is somewhat unbalanced. So this game was not very well received. It was not highly sold when it came out in 1990. A lot of people didn't hold on to this. A lot of people didn't buy it to begin with because they heard their friends talking trash about it. So this particular game, there's not going to be a lot of them out there. This is the finest known copy of this. Like I said, there's only about 3 of these that have come to market in the last 2 years, so not a lot of copies of this out there, especially in high grade. I think you can find some copies online. I think we've seen this one every once in a while pop up, but they're usually torn seal or kind of beat up boxes. You're not going to find high grade copies of this. Like I said, it wasn't well received, had a lot of bugs, had a lot of problems. Nobody really played this game. It's just an average platformer, one that you wouldn't race out to the store to pick up even back in 1990. So those are our suggestions today for our rare and hard to find Nintendo Entertainment System games. Please drop us some comments in the comment section below. Give us a thumbs up if you liked the video. And as always, remember to subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Thank you for joining us here at Certified Collectibles, and we'll see you again next time.